Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member Capito. Secretary Becerra, thank you for being here today and for all of your work on a daily basis. I'm sorry I missed your opening remarks, but I very much appreciate you mentioning insulin and the need to address insulin affordability. And despite the efforts in the last year's legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, to cap out-of-pocket costs for insulin for Medicare at $35 a person, we still see challenges with affordability for insulin. Can you speak to that and what we're seeing on the private market compared to Medicare now that we've capped the cost?
And Senator, I know despite many of your efforts to include the $35 cap on insulin for everyone in America, the bill ultimately had to get pared down to only provide it to the 66 million Americans who receive Medicare benefits. The president in his budget calls for extending that to everyone in America, not just those on Medicare. And what we're finding is that in some spaces, some of the manufacturers of insulin have said that they would reduce the cost to commercial private insurance plans to $35, but not everyone in America is experiencing the savings that comes from having access to insulin at $35 a month.
Well, thank you. And in fact, then we have companies like Novo Nordisk who said that they were going to reduce the cost for Levemir, and then now they've taken Levemir totally off the market after saying they were going to reduce the cost. So there's some disingenuousness in what we're hearing from some of the providers. And on a similar note, I've heard from constituents about ongoing shortages of insulin, Humalog and Novolog. We heard from Walter Chapman, who's a 70-year-old constituent in Dover, New Hampshire. He visited 3 different pharmacies. He called several others in surrounding towns before he could finally find his insulin in stock. And he wasn't calling small independent pharmacies. He was calling CVS, Walgreens, Walmart with big footprints. So what are we going to do to address these shortages, and how can we make it more transparent so people know what they're getting?
And this is where work is ongoing. We have a proposal that we've submitted to try to have more transparency in the pharmaceutical industry because it is so difficult to know what's going on behind the curtain. There is no reason why insulin should be in shortage anywhere because it's so easy to produce and so inexpensive to produce. But that's the game that's played. And that's why the president continues to want to get behind the curtain. That's why it's so indispensable that you gave us the authority by law to negotiate, to drive down the prices of some of the most expensive medicines under Medicare.
And in fact, we have legislation in the Senate, Senator Collins and I do, Senators Warnock and Kennedy, that would cap the cost, out-of-pocket costs for insulin, as well as dealing with availability. I hope that we will see leadership bring it to the floor this year because I think we have the votes to pass it. On another note, as you know, Title X funding is critical to ensuring family planning providers can keep their doors open in states, particularly states like New Hampshire, where abortion remains legal, but where we have many small providers and we have state legislatures that are preventing those small providers from getting the funding they need. I appreciate Health and Human Services working with family planning providers in New Hampshire, but can you tell us what else you're thinking about in terms of helping keep those folks in business?
So most every time I travel across the country, I will visit a family planning program because they are indispensable to so many families. They do more. Some people think all they do is provide care to women. They provide care to families, family planning. The president's budget, as you're probably aware, tries to boost funding under Title X, another $100 million, so we get back to where we used to be in some of the funding levels for these programs, to over $350 million. That's going to be important because families are desperate for the kind of care that helps them have good outcomes in all of their family planning.
Well, that's right, and it's unfortunate that this is an issue that's become all about abortion because the family planning providers in New Hampshire serve thousands of women. They provide well-check visits, they provide cancer screenings, they provide STD screenings, and without them, we would have so many people who would not be able to get care at all. So you're absolutely right, and I appreciate what the department is doing. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.